Hey friends, welcome to the new episode. Today we're going to the province of Cordoba, where we'll learn about the case of a family that went through serious times in their home, where there were deaths. And apparently they were linked to something very complicated. I don't want to tell you more than this, so that at the end you can have your own opinion about this case, which is truly shocking. Can you send your audio experience to the number showing now? But before we start, because many of you don't know, YouTube doesn't notify everyone. Yesterday, Friday, the third episode of Stories from the Other Side was released with a new interview. So if you didn't see it, go look for it, because maybe it's a topic that interests you. Now then, with that said, let's begin. I'm Gustavo, and this story includes much of my family, where something, in a very strange way, systematically presented itself to us, but not just anywhere. There is a specific place in our house where death seems to wait for each victim. I'm originally from the northwest of the city of Cordoba, and that's exactly where things happen that are hard to explain logically. And without further introduction, I'm going to tell you that in our house there was a bedroom where I lived. Nothing more and nothing less than death itself, or maybe some entity that was connected to it. You'll soon find out all the details, which are truly chilling. Maybe I should start by telling you that I was born and raised in my maternal grandmother's house, but before you know it, things I experienced firsthand. You should know that I never met my grandfather on my mother's side, and this is where everything could have started, although I suspect it was much earlier. I never met my grandfather, like I told you, living in the same house with my grandmother. One afternoon he went to sleep and never woke up again. He died alone while sleeping and no one noticed. But thinking a bit about this event, we can all agree that his death was one of the best ways to go. Sleeping, likely unaware, drifting from one dream to another. Although the reality is that as time went by, we realized that it wasn't exactly like that. My grandfather was possibly the first victim of this entity that was lurking around anyone who entered that bedroom. Gradually, you'll understand why I say this is truly terrifying.
In that bedroom, after my maternal grandfather passed away, for no apparent reason, it caught fire, it burned. My grandmother wasn't there, she was traveling, she had gone to Mendoza. So both my mother and her siblings decided to paint again, trying to make sure my grandmother wouldn't notice. But when my grandmother came back from her trip, it was like the smell of burning was still there.
As time went by, and this is something curious, different stains would reappear on the walls, which were or seemed to be residues from that fire. Black stains that weren't from humidity nor from soot. They were dark blotches that would come out through the new paint. Fed up, they wallpapered the entire room, covering all the stains. Carpet was put on the floor and the place changed radically. But it only changed on the outside, because inside there was that thing that simply lived by consuming souls. A few years later, we built a new structure on top of this house, where my sister, my mom, my dad and I moved in. My godfather and grandmother stayed downstairs in the house. And in this same house, in that same bedroom, a new tragedy happened. My aunt was inside arranging some things, and in a single second she fell to the floor, and a pool of blood was what foretold her end. She died inside that place within a few minutes. What was the reason? In this case, it was an accident, but you'll decide later if it was just a coincidence or if somehow everything was connected. That morning, a neighbor was cleaning his .38 revolver when it accidentally discharged. A shot that entered our house and hit my aunt, causing her death in a matter of minutes. Therefore, she was the second death, or maybe the second victim of this place. And it didn't end there. A few months later, my uncle was hospitalized urgently due to a complication in his intestines. Unfortunately, on December 19th he passed away, and look, he didn't die in the room I already told you about. But it's hard not to imagine that the same entity was responsible for his health worsening drastically and suddenly. Therefore, my grandmother stayed living alone in her house, and I was the one who decided to move in with her so that at least she would feel accompanied. I really loved being with her, so I didn't mind doing this at all. But it was only a matter of days before I started to realize that something was wrong. I want to be clear that up until that moment, none of the deaths had been considered paranormal, and no one in the house had reported experiencing any significant supernatural events either. It was all very mild. Life simply went on, overcoming everything that was happening. But just a few days after I moved in with my grandmother, and always during the night, you would feel something terrifying. Anywhere in the house, you would suddenly feel something surround you and freeze your body, always from behind. No matter the temperature, completely ruling out drafts. This always happened, and even more so when you turned off the lights and walked, for example, from one place to another. And in the rooms, all of this would intensify, but luckily it didn't go beyond that, and for now we were all fine, but not for long. Sometime later, specifically in 2005, my grandmother lies in the same bedroom where two people had died before, in the same bed where my grandfather passed away and where this entity was. No matter what, she laid down to take a nap and never woke up again. We found her unconscious, apparently from a stroke. She was hospitalized and within a few days she passed away. And here, I would like you, after hearing all this, to start connecting everything that happened, and I ask you, was it just a coincidence or was there something more? And continuing this story, just 3 years later, my old man went to bed, as you can imagine, in that same room on the ground floor, in that same bed, and in the afternoon, just like my grandmother, taking a nap. That time he woke up more agitated than ever. We saw him saying incoherent things that didn't make sense, or maybe they did, but we were scared and didn't pay attention. But then it was too late, because that same day my old man died. The family was devastated, as you can imagine. Death comes to all of us, obviously, but they were happening in a very short span of time and in an almost devastating way, without even being able to have hope for anything. And the situation was so serious that 2 years later, in 2010, to be exact, my sister, who was 26 years old at the time, in that same bedroom, in that same bed, went to sleep. The reason was never known, but she became unwell. And also, although it seems unbelievable, she died without us being able to do anything. The house was taking the lives of everyone in the family, and it was only then that I talked to my mom and suggested we sell it. We had to get out of that house as soon as possible. Anyway, by that time I was already married and living in another house. But I didn't want my mom to be in danger for anything in the world. I felt it was only a matter of time before they took her too, and so a few months later we sold it. And the person who bought our house simply renovated and built on it. More apartments in the back, since there was a lot of free space in this neighborhood. Just for reference, the lots were about 20 meters wide by 50 meters long. And I felt happy, that's why I was very happy. I felt happy, that's why I was happy, and I felt very happy. And I felt very happy, and
That's why I felt happy, and that's why I felt very happy. Her name was Nervous Track, and she passed away. The house remains very spooky to this day. They performed an exorcism on her. At the time, it was performed by Cardinal Prima Testa here in Cordoba, because it was said that she was possessed. She had an attack, a crisis. One day she wrapped herself in barbed wire naked in the street, ran and got dressed under a car. They managed to get her out. She used to go into trances like that. And according to what the neighbors said, they told her she was possessed. For the simple fact that being wrapped in barbed wire, she had hurt herself all over. The firefighters who had managed to get her out from under the car wrapped her in a blanket. It was like she came out of that trance, asked if she could put on some clothes, and when she started walking into the house, she let the blanket fall. And she didn't have a single trace of blood, no marks, no injuries, nothing. Everyone there was shocked she was standing.
regarding these new properties that were built on that land where I lived for so many years, something happened that I directly relate to this entity and to what was happening. Practically no tenant lasted more than a few months renting. And not just in one, but in all the available apartments, even the new ones that were built where there used to be a garden. It seemed that this entity had taken complete possession of the entire building. And not only that, I found out that the construction workers who worked on the building spent weeks in terror working there, because they felt at all times that something was watching them. Things would fall, accidents happened, and tools got moved around. And these things were so obvious that not even the night watchman agreed to stay and guard the building at night.
After my mother passed away, being a taxi driver and having seen several dead people on the street, something very strange happened to me with a moneylender with whom my mom had recently passed away. I went to pay him an installment of the loan I had, and the moneylender asked me, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm alone." I told him, no, I'm not. Can't you see I'm with someone? And he said, no, I'm telling you I'm alone. He came to the car because he didn't believe me, and so I was alone. And the lender grabbed me and said, "I swear to God, I saw a woman, kind of dark-skinned, with dyed light brown hair." Of course, he said to me. I asked him, "Seriously, you saw her like that?" "Yes," I said, "that's my mother." He replied, "She's watching over you, sitting beside you in the taxi, taking care of you, so take care of yourself." Back in '93, something happened, and we don't really know exactly what it was. In front of my house lived a mother with her daughter, an older woman as well. Well, the lady had become a widow. Her husband had died while they were digging a cesspit. People in the neighborhood used to say that this lady, if you didn't know her, you would think she was strange. They practiced black magic to try to communicate with her husband. That girl, the daughter, used to have a boyfriend of my godfather, and on December 19th, 1992, my godfather passed away. And in the first days of January 1993, my grandmother heard my godfather's voice calling her, asking her for help. When she followed where the voice was coming from, could it have been coming from outside the door? When my grandmother opened the window in the door, she saw the neighbor's daughter from across the street, with her eyes wide or the iris rolled up like a person in a trance. My grandmother asked, nervous-struck, "What are you doing? Do you need anything? Are you okay?" Until she came back, and nervous-struck didn't understand what she was doing there. It is said, and as far as I know, and as far as I have seen, that black pigeons do not exist. And after my godfather died, on more than one occasion, a black pigeon would perch on the window frame. That same window that on several occasions was hit by stones that flew in from nowhere, and nobody knows where they came from. After my dad passed away, we managed to bring a priest, and the priest told us that house had a very negative energy, that someone envied the unity of that family. I believe in witches. I believe in elves. I believe in the Ouija board game. I've done it. I know there are portals you can open, and you have to do it carefully because they're not easy to close. I don't know. They say that the area where I am, where I used to live, used to be farmland. My grandmother's house was one of the first houses from a housing plan, the habitat plan that was carried out in that area. I don't know, but that house took much of my family with it. A negative force slowly started taking over that house. You'd go into that house and there was always a bad smell. I don't know who it could have been. I don't know if it was my grandfather, if it was my aunt, but someone left with something unresolved against my family. Nowadays I'm alone in this world. I have my wife, I have my son, and things keep happening to me.